Hello and good evening, race fans. Thank you for tuning in to DRL TV for this live broadcast of the Molnar Automotive Cup Series. I am Getty Buckner, and my partner today is Martin Wenzel. Together, we will be bringing you the Michigan 200 here at Michigan International Speedway. This is race number 15 on the year, but we still have a lot of racing to do. After today, we will have 11 races left until we start our playoffs. For those of you that are not great at math, that is actually more than halfway. Now, as for today, though, we have 100 laps here at Michigan, and it is going to be just the fastest racetrack here on the NASCAR circuit, so it's going to be incredibly fast, very fun. Martin, speaking as a driver, what is it about Michigan that gets you amped up to race?
I think having that speed, you get almost to 200 miles per hour down those stretches, and then you're going into the turn, and you don't have to bleed off too much going into the turns, but you have to worry about gotta worry a little bit about those exits. Make sure you're on that right line, otherwise you're gonna coast up and bang that wall pretty hard.
Yeah, so far, watching this practice, which we do have about a minute left before we start qualifying, I have seen that turn 2 has been pretty busy as far as cars making contact with that outside wall. Obviously, if you make contact here and you're not really able to get the majority of that damage fixed with how aerodynamically focused this track is, I mean, that basically, with as competitive as this series is, that automatically removes you from being a top 15 car, it seems like.
Oh yeah, you can lose a ton of time right there, and the big problem is if you let off, you make a mistake coming out of that turn, then you let off, that guy behind you is going to rear end you, and that's going to cause a nice pile up for everyone.
Yeah, and getting word from some of the drivers here, the setup here that we're using today is already more on the looser side, and the weather is pretty decent. It's not like going to be super crazy. We'll get into that a little bit later, but talking with how loose these cars are going to be on their own, and then you add in the fact that making contact with the wall or maybe getting in front of traffic here when they're not expecting it. We actually saw some incidents last night about that were kind of similar to that, so definitely could be a very interesting race. And oh, by the way, they're doing it at about 200 and some miles an hour by the time you get to the end of these straightaways, so it's going to be very interesting. Yep. Now, Wade Hustad was actually the fastest of that qualifying. He and Chad Presnell were 1-2. Maybe we'll try to look at some of those guys during their hot laps here and kind of see maybe if we can take some secrets.
Well, I'm just looking at the practice times, and it's a murderer's row of some really good drivers, some guys that are really competitive. I mean, just look at those top guys. I mean, Joseph Helt, Alec Martinez, and Eli Hinton are pretty new, but they've kind of shown that they can hang up in that top 10, and then obviously you got Anthony Burrows. Jordan Gonzalez has been hit and miss this season. He's a guy, I mean, he's looking to get it all together and have a complete race. Kean Raleigh Hall, Powell back for another race here. He was a pretty fast car when he was out there. Eric Johnson, Thomas Harmon. So, I mean, just those top 10 right there, and we're not even getting to someone like Jonathan Schwartz or Mark Johnson, some of those other guys that are, competing.
Well, and
for those playoff spots.
A few of those drivers that you mentioned, actually, Eli Hinton, I believe, last week was his first race, and he actually finished in the top 3. Joseph Held, who's only done a couple races with us, also finished in the top 3 last week at Pocono, which is kind of similar to Michigan as far as it being, just a massive track. Obviously, Pocono, you have a little bit more work to do in the corners versus here at Michigan, but maybe some of those guys can use that momentum coming off of Pocono and come here to Michigan and end up maybe with another top 5.
Well, this is a track where it does get strung out, but really quickly you'll suddenly be in a pack of 4 blowing past a guy. I mean, the passing is so fast because when you're doing the passing, it's like usually a guy has lost the momentum. He's had to come out of the turn and slow down, or he just went in slower than you got, on little slightly older tires, and suddenly you're able to blow past them. Whereas Pocono, it was a lot of side-by-side racing that whole race. So this one's going to look a little different, I think, but...
Yeah, now, I mean, with Pocono, you guys, last week, we only had 3 lead changes, so, I mean, there was good side-by-side racing, but only 3 different leaders that crossed the start-finish line. 7 total cautions, which is a little bit more than what you would expect for the Cup Series here, as, normally these guys have great car control and are pretty smart, but Pocono, for some reason, didn't bring out the very best in some of these drivers. Same with Charlotte the week before, so... maybe we can get, a little bit of more of a Michigan type race here, where you do tend to get those longer green flag runs, and people do, get pretty spread out here.
Well, I would say Pocono and Michigan. It was weird with Pocono on the restarts, on like those starts. You get such that guy in the back. I mean, if he hits that gas just slightly before the guy in front of him, he gets such a run. You can get such a run and go on the outside, and you could make it 3 wide before the line, which is illegal, but it can happen. And we've had problems like that at Pocono, and even here in Michigan, where we've had problems on the restarts with guys bunching up and going 4 wide just out of necessity, because they'll go and then the guy in front of them doesn't go because they thought the leader was going. It's weird how here at these bigger tracks, it's such a bigger thing. I mean, even I remember like Bristol and Atlanta, the little smaller tracks, Dover, didn't have as much of that. If you jumped the restart, it wasn't as big of a deal. Here, it's like you can jump the restart and suddenly you're flying past 10 cars because you just have that little bit extra momentum, speed already versus everyone else.
Yeah, and last night, I can actually, we broadcasted last night's race also. And I did notice that the restarts were, I guess for a lack of better words, honestly, just kind of ugly. Obviously, when you go to a tighter track like Dover, kind of as you mentioned, the restarts are just generally tighter. That's just kind of the way it is when you don't have as much room. Here, with all the room that you have here at Michigan, I mean, being able to go 4 wide, not comfortably, but you're able to do it. Especially on the front stretch there, where we obviously wave the green flag. There's so much room there, and if a driver maybe gets a little bit of a jump, he's going to get anxious and he's going to want to dive down low, and all of a sudden it is going to be 3-4 wide before they even head into turn 1. So hopefully we don't get too much of that. Obviously, race control would be on top of that anyway. You're not really supposed to be changing lanes before we get to the start-finish line, but once you get past it and heading into turn 1, the gloves are off. So looking at those that lap time there, I believe Chad Presnall is our pole sitter for this race, who was also last night's Northeast Ohio Grand National Series winner.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was the winner last night. I was on the back of I was on the end of the lead lap, so I didn't see him much.
I mean, he didn't qualify very well yesterday, if I remember correctly, but he did make his way through, and he and Justin Levine, halfway through that race, I mean, they were the class of the field last night. So in talking with them post-race, they said, there's not really a whole lot that you can bring from that race to this race because the cars are so much different.
Yeah, cars are different.
The speeds are so much different, but it helps, though, knowing that, at least confidence-wise, that you did come here yesterday and win. So we will turn the grid on here, and maybe if we can grab Chad Presnall, I will move him up here. Hey, Chad, you got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, you started out yesterday by not qualifying all that great, but you ended up winning the race. Today here, you're qualifying pole. What does that say about your chances today?
We got a lot of laps ahead of us. I think it's going to come down to consistency and keeping the right front on the car. So, there's just a Q lap, just the start of the race, so we'll have to see how it unfolds.
Awesome, Chad. Well, you have a good rest of the race here, and hopefully we'll be talking to you at the end.
10-4. Thanks, guys.
Now, Martin, as we're pacing here, I'm going to bring up these points real quick as we get an opportunity. After last week's winner, Eric Wolf finally breaking through and getting his first win here of the season, he decided to back that up by not showing up today. So he will not be defending his race win for Pocono, but he is well within the top 5. But we do have some great talent down there, kind of in the bottom there. What of one of those drivers are performing well that you could expect to get a win today, kind of in that bottom 10 or maybe even below the cutoff?
I'm looking for John Theodore to do something. He's a guy that I expect to, at some point, leapfrog, and get in front of Jordan Gonzalez, David Wellborn, and maybe even get past Daniel Hallis and slip into that top 16. Mm-hmm. Daniel Hallis being the lowest points driver, or driver in there for points at this, because those guys below him, Wright, Schwartz, and Harmon all have wins.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looking. Aaron James is missing the race. Eric Wolf is missing. Mike Springer. I'm looking for Mike Springer to get a win here. I mean, obviously he's top 4.
Yeah,
but I'm just looking at the guys on this thing. It's like, other than Jonathan Schwartz, Mike Springer is a guy I can see maybe picking up a win here.
Yeah, and as you say that, Chad Presnell jumping out to an enormous lead already. Got a great jump on that restart, or that start rather, with he and the 02 of Joseph Held right behind him. But Chad Presnell, Wade Hustad, they were kind of the class of the field in practice. We'll see what they are able to do and if anyone is really able to challenge them, as Joseph is all over Chad Presnell. Single file up to 3rd for him. Kind of single file there for those top 10. Something we didn't see right away last night, as last night's race we had some pretty aggressive driving right off the bat here. And we are on board currently with Chad Presnell looking back to that 2nd place, and we have a car.
Whoa, Sideris Jackson into the inside wall, got loose coming out of the turn.
And we saw that through the view that I was just on. We saw a car duck down low.
In his mirror?
Yeah, as we were looking back here.
Yeah, and he was in 9th position at that point, or at least, started 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, he's already gotten out of the car. That's it for his race. That's a bummer, starting the race 9th and can't even get out of turn 2 without wiping out.
Yeah, and he was fast in practice. There was a pre-race practice as well that one of our co-owner, Peter Bowman, said he was fast in that practice as well. Very unfortunate to see Cy Jackson.
Yeah, that's probably why he bailed out really quick. I don't know how much damage he probably had quite a bit of damage too, but I'm sure he could have gotten back out on the track. But if you have a fast car and you thought you were going to compete, and then you wipe yourself out in turn 1, you get loose. And the wall. You're kind of like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to do something else.
And I don't think he'll be the last person to do it either, as we are looking at Theodore taking the inside on Musil, and Joseph Held actually has taken the lead from Chad Presnell. But again, definitely very more calm racing to start this race here, as most of the top 10, top 15 even, are kind of just all in line here. Besides Wade Hustad picking inside of his teammate for 2nd place. Setting his sights on Joseph Held, who again has had a very impressive debut, I guess, as you would call it, his first couple races here in the Dynasty Racing League.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the top 10 here, and I could see any one of these guys winning a race this season, obviously. Chris Stouffer is a guy that won. He's got that 0.24, but usually these the 07. But Chris Stouffer, he won Michigan last year, all the way last year. That was one of our early races, actually, last season, in the first season of DRL, and he won that race. So I should have picked him to win this race, but We'll see. I mean, I'm just looking at that top 10, 11. You know, all those guys are guys that could at any point just get a win. You know, they're those top tier drivers.
Yeah, and we're currently watching Wade Hustad try to track down Joseph Held, but we saw, I mean, basically as far back as Spencer Tart, top 15 there. Ooh, we do have a little gaggle there right behind Jonathan Schwartz.
Yeah, Anthony
Burrows and Eric Johnson, who he is coming off of a fairly decent run last week at Pocono as well.
Getting a little close there now with Hinton's in there also. Eric Johnson, and then you got Schwartz, Hinton, and Burrows. And they've kind of gotten spread out now again, but they were all on top of each other. Now Thomas Harmon's right on the eyeing up. Who is that? Is that Christopher? I think that's Christopher's spot right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's Kean Riley Howell in 10. I'm in blimp view, so it's a little hard to tell sometimes.
Wade Hustad has cut him down into about a 10th as he's still chasing Joseph Held. But again, I'm still looking back here at Jonathan Schwartz and
he was
Anthony
wiggling
Burrows.
out of that turn. Schwartz was wiggling out of turn too. It was just back and forth, kind of wiggling.
Hinton, comes up the slide right there in front of Jonathan Schwartz, and Schwartz is going to try to cross him over.
That's exactly it. It's like if you get a little loose and you slow down a little bit, hopefully that guy behind you is able to get out into that other lane and just swoop past you, because he's going to have a ton of speed if he's solid. And if you're wiggling and Anthony Burrows is going to slip by.
Looks like Schwartz, he got way loose.
Yeah.
And behind him, looking back there at John Theodore as well, he has he's got some company.
Schwartz came up right going into that turn. He swooped right in front of Thomas Harmon, cut off Harmon's line, and they almost made contact. Yeah, Schwartz is. I don't think he's feeling too comfortable in coming out of turn 2 at least. I'm going to be keeping an eye on him to see how he can do out of this next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he can settle down here.
And while we've been looking at all this action back here, it seems as if the Wade Hustad has actually passed and put a little gap on Joseph Held here. But we are going to take just a little bit of a commercial break, people, as we are just 10 laps into this 100-lap race. We'll be right back here on DRL TV.
Truex in the outside, contact made. 56 slides it at a 4. Who's going to be at the stripe? Dead even, give it to Ryan Truex. Truex is your winner over Tandy.
And welcome back, guys. Wade Hustad still your leader here at the Michigan 200. We are just 15 laps into this 100-lap race. Things have kind of gotten spread out. You get that green flag feel here, Martin. It's possible we will be getting some green flag pit stops. Kind of some of the word that I've been getting here is a fuel run is probably somewhere around 40 to 42 laps, but you're obviously going to be searching for tires way before that, as I'm sure already at lap 15 these guys probably would want some new Goodyears.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the strategy for some of these guys are going to be. Are you going to split this race into thirds? Are you going to be out there? I mean, is that even going to be something you need to worry about? Because I have a hard time believing that we're not going to have a yellow flag at some point, especially later, probably as we get close to lap 30. And then, but as you get past into that 30 to 40 range, you start getting towards the end of that fuel run, do you start thinking that strategy, like break it up to thirds, you just stay out there as long as possible waiting for that yellow flag that's inevitably going to happen? You know, and how long do you wait on that too? Because then you're losing a ton of time when everyone else is going for tires. So there's a lot of strategy, and some of these guys do have spotters. Some of these guys do have people helping them out with planning those things, and other people are just kind of going on it on the fly. That's usually how I do it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really hard to plan a race. I mean, as much as you want to, there's just so many different variables as far as maybe weather. You're just eating through tires so much faster than you anticipated, you know, or just really anything. As we are currently on board where we were riding along with Jordan Gonzalez. We are now currently on board with Mark Johnson back here, kind of seeing as he looks to have just lost control of his vehicle. He does have some significant rear end damage.
Yeah, that was Alec Martinez in front of him, kind of sideways to that turn.
Yeah,
I mean, lose that position.
We're getting to that point also in that green flag run with these guys. Car control isn't going to be as easy because.
Well, the issue is Mark Johnson was taking.
Yeah, I saw that huge wiggle.
But if it's really weird. It's like, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be when you're passing? Do you want to be that outside car, that inside car? And I would say you definitely want to be that outside car, because even if you're like, these cars are a little bit loose. So
as you're saying that, Mark Johnson is literally losing his rear end every 5 seconds.
You're gonna be able to keep that car off the wall, hopefully.
Right.
But it's that bottom guy, and yeah, Johnson is really struggling there. But yeah, there he goes. He's going sideways. Does he have it? He's gonna hang on to it.
And Joshua Wakefield behind him lost it, and we are 3 wide. PJ O'Leary, Chris James, Jordan Gonzalez, 3 wide back here, battling for that 17th spot here. Oh, PJ O'Leary, he is just about had enough here, as he's going to duck down the apron and maybe to take it easy. At the same time, Martin, 3 vehicles all lost it off of turn 2, and as we kind of hypothesized at the beginning of this,
someone's in the grass. Who is that? That's Dustin Musial in the grass. Now he's going back out. Oh man, it's good. Yeah. Well, I can see David Wright is trying to pass David Wellborn going out of that turn, and that's that low car, because the car's going to push up tight, but it's also, if you turn the wheel too much, then you're going to snap loose, and so you're really in a hard place when you're that inside car trying to pass.
Yeah, and another thing is trying to make it 40 laps here, as we've already seen only halfway through a run here. You know, those right front tires, because we're going so fast into these turns, and granted they are banked fairly modestly at 18 degrees here for turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, but that's not a lot considering these guys are diving down into those turns, going somewhere in the area of maybe 210 miles an hour. So yeah, those tires are just going to fade so fast, and if you're trying to pass on the inside, that's just even more stress that you're putting on that right front, which Chad Presnall specifically mentioned that's the one thing that you need to take care of, is that right front tire. So passing on the inside, not great, but I kind of from what I'm picking up here, a lot of these guys are going to protect that outside anyway, so you really don't have a choice. If you want to get by a guy, you're going to have to try down low.
Ooh, and PJ, is that... I need to get my paints here better. Ooh.
PJ O'Leary.
PJ O'Leary. Got that Little Caesars.
Yeah, pizza.
Caesars, I like that.
Yeah.
Yep. He got a little loose that last one there.
And he has, that's not the first time we were actually on him just a few laps ago, as he lost it coming off of turn 2 and then again coming out of turn 4. So handling definitely becoming an issue. As Wellborn, we were looking at David Wellborn now. He's currently through the grass and back here on the track. And he does have a little bit
all the way back to the back of the field, 28th now, yep. Yeah,
it does look like he has a little bit of right front damage, though, so that could have been one of those things where he kind of smooches the wall on exit, and, the first thing that these
now
cars
he's going sideways
do...
again. He needs to get that car under him before he tries to get some speed. I think he might have worn those tires off, too, going through there. He might have to come in the pits here and get some freshies. But
again, some of these guys might short pit too, Martin. That is something that we could possibly see as far as strategy here, or just as far as survival goes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think these leaders, the guys in front, obviously there's a little bit of a skill gap. They are faster. I think these guys can handle it. They can go maybe 30, 40 laps, no problem. They're going to do that. But I think the guys further back, they might start pitting lap 30. Wait. If I'm out there and I'm not feeling comfortable in my car at this point, I'm gonna wait, maybe 5 more laps and then start going in. See where other people start going in, and try to stay out a little bit longer. Hope for that yellow flag. Otherwise, I'm going in if I'm not comfortable. If I'm starting to get comfortable, because sometimes that happens. Your tires start wearing in, even though the handling's a little bit trickier. You figure it out. And now you're solid and you're gaining time on people. I'll stay out as long as possible and wait for that yellow flag. Once that leader starts going down, you don't want to stay out a little bit longer.
I mean, the longer you stay out, I feel the more you learn about your car. And you can see some of these guys out here in the top 10. Everyone in this top 10. Obviously, I'm not that familiar with Eli Hinton, but everyone else is a name that I recognize. I know that they have great car control. As they're out here, they're kind of figuring out different things they can do with the brake pedal, where they brake, whether to brake or not to, or roll or back up the corner. I mean, there's so many different things you figure out to try to maintain speed on these long green flag runs. It's almost not beneficial to do the short pit because you don't learn anything. I mean, not every stint that you do is going to last exactly 20 laps. So I definitely see your point there.
Yeah, and you might as well stay out on this one, because you're always, at some point there is going to be a caution, the field's going to get tightened back up, and then if this race goes like Grand National race last night, we had a lot of early cautions, but then it settled down and we had green flag stops, and I think the last, what was it, like 50 laps were green and finished green. And so you didn't want to have to pit after 10, 15 laps because you only know how to drive 10, 15 laps. If you can drive 50 laps.
Yeah, exactly.
So learn those 50 laps now. And then at the end of the race, you'll know what to do when it's crunch time, and you can't really afford to come in and pit.
And, we were looking on board with Eli Hinton. I was just kind of trying to pay attention to, what kind of throttle work he's doing, and then I jumped back here to a battle between David Wright and Mark Johnson, who have been kind of racing pretty close there for most of this race, but right ahead of these guys, Mike Springer.
There's a lot of clumps of cars,
yeah, absolutely. It almost seemed like earlier there was groups of 2 kind of up front, but now we're looking at this group here, with Jordan Gonzalez being kind of right there in the middle. This is a group that we kind of saw in yesterday's Grand National race, where these guys just couldn't get away from one another no matter what. There was a group it was around 10th place, I believe. Martin, you were kind of involved in that group as well for a while, and some of these guys, no matter what they do, no matter what they try, they just can't get away from one another, and it seemed to be like that almost all of last night's race. So we'll see kind of if these guys are able to maybe sort themselves out here, because they're not doing themselves any favors by battling side by side.
Well, I haven't seen any slide jobs yet where a guy will come up and right out of that turn cut right in front of your nose, and right out that turn. He'll come on the inside and then just slide right up, like right on. I had that happen to me like 2 or 3 times, and one time it drove me right into the fence. But I haven't seen any of that. I mean, it's been very clean. I mean, we're going into lap 30, and we've had a few cars go sideways, a few cars go through the grass, a few cars tap that wall, and only one, that was Cy Jackson on the first lap, the first turn. Whoa, and Jordan Gonzalez gets a little loose on the tri-oval.
Ooh.
Alec Martinez almost gets into
Eric
him.
Johnson. Sorry, Martin. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
as you were speaking about that.
Ooh, Eric Johnson into the wall.
Anthony Burrows got super loose coming off of that corner, and Eric Johnson actually ended up being the recipient of some bad luck there.
That's all I was talking about. It's like you're gonna have that guy. If that guy in front of you gets just a little loose, checks up just a little bit, that could really screw the guy behind, or you could really screw that guy in front of you. So it's one or the other is going to have some trouble, or both. And in that one, Eric Johnson stayed off of Burrows for the most part, but cost him a
We are watching that live. Eric Johnson, I mean, he could have not done what he did and just absolutely plowed Anthony Burrows. Instead, he decides to, try to let off, and in the process, though, however, we're looking at his damaged paint, or his damaged truck here, or car, rather. My goodness.
Yeah, he's got some good front end damage.
And right now we're looking on board at David Wellborn. This is probably a scheduled pit stop. I know he had some damage too. We noticed he was kind of struggling. He and Mike Springer both are now coming down. Again, some of these guys, I would definitely consider this scheduled, as we have seen even some of our better drivers here can't really have, they don't really have a good handle on this thing right now. So this might be the new window, Martin. Instead of waiting for gas, lap 32, lap 35-ish, this could be basically where these guys, they're cut off here.
Well, it makes sense if if this race goes green the whole way. You probably want to. You're gonna have to have 3 pit stops, right? Mm-hmm. Two pit stops. You're gonna have 2 pit stops. Ooh, David Wellborn just gets a yellow line. Let's see if he gets a black flag for that or not.
No, we're actually riding with Mike Springer. Something we forgot to allude, we forgot to make note of here is this new pit exit here. As we were watching Mike Springer, we saw that blue cone there. You cannot exit or even touch the line until you pass that blue cone on the backstretch. Now, as we get to these different pit strategies, Martin, one thing that I always make a note of is you're going to have a lot of slow cars, you're going to have a lot of fast cars, actually, as we see a bunch of cars dive on now. So
yeah, everyone's starting to come down now. It looks like it's getting a little congested. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder how long the leaders are going to stay out. They might stay out a few more laps. I know Joseph Helt, I think he came over. He's actually down pit road already. So, yeah, I think within the next few laps, and that's what I was saying. It's like you want to break this up into probably thirds, so you're going to have 2 pit stops. You can't do just one, because you're going to be really stretching on that fuel. And so it's going to be 3. You might as well break it up into thirds here, and I guess people decided, hey, let's go in at lap 33, 34, 35. That's exactly a third of the way in. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of mentioning with David Wellborn, that's what I was mentioning. It's like, if you're not feeling comfortable with your car, go in at lap 30. Why not?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And right now I'm riding with Theodore, as kind of, you can see Spencer Tart is a little bit braver on that pit road exit on that apron, and he's able.
Jonathan Schwartz was too.
So
Schwartz got a huge run and almost got into the rear end of Theodore.
You can make up a lot of time there. It's looking like there. So Wade Hustad, Chad Presnell, Anthony Burrows are now also in the pit road here.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be some. That's going to be a key race point right there. Is that a pit end or that pit exit? Because I was saying, it's like last night at the Grand National race, I was coming out of that thing 4th gear, full speed. I was going around that corner, no problem. And other people were really taking it easy. Really, it's narrow, but not as narrow as you think. It really isn't. I mean, you can really, it's not that small, but any little mistake, little loss of focus, you touch that yellow line, and that's a black flag. And there's nothing our race control can do about it either, because that black flag is, you can clear it, but you still have to serve the penalty for some reason. So
And right now we were riding on board with Thomas Harmon. He is currently our leader here. He is, one of the drivers right now with 37 laps on their tires. He and 12 other drivers have decided to stay out. Eric Johnson being the last car that hasn't hit yet, which is surprising considering all the damage that he received on the backstretch there. But we kind of saw there in that shot just the difference in speed between these cars here. So until this gets cycled fully, there's still a huge amount. There's a huge risk of one of these guys that are staying out just getting run over completely. So
I think very much Harmon's strategy right now is he's gonna stay out as long as he can. I mean, Anthony Burrows is now back onto the lead lap. He was a lap down. He's got his lap back, but he's going to stay out as long as he can, as long as he's comfortable and not going sideways through these turns. And then he's going, he's going to put everyone a lap down or keep a lot of people a lap down. And he's open for that yellow.
Yeah.
And as you can see, Spencer Tart and Johnson Schwartz, no problem getting past him.
That's what we were watching. We were watching just the closing speed on that back straightaway between Harmon and Spencer Tart there. But we saw this last night. Justin Levine and Chad Presnall in the Grand National Series. This is kind of what happened where Chad Presnall, as we look at Theodore, just look at this absolute just rocket ship. It really kind of makes you feel like a superhero when you're out there passing these cars. Yeah. But anyway, back to what I was saying. We saw Chad Presnall pit at lap X, we'll just say, lap whatever, and then Levine, who was in second, chasing him, kind of waited just one lap or two too long, and he just lost too much time. He was never able to make it up, and that ended up being the final order of where they finished. Was Chad Presnall coming out first, being able to gain those extra seconds while Levine was on those super old tires. So there's waiting, and then there's waiting too long, Martin, I feel like. But again, we're only lap 40 of 100, so there's obviously plenty of time. I anticipate that if you maybe go too long here, you'll be able to make up for it later in the race.
Well, I'm trying to think like what's the amount of time? Well, Harmon's going to go pit in now, but what's the amount of time to stay out, and like how far do you want those leaders behind you? How close do you let them get to you before you pit in? Because now, granted, on the other side of it, Harmon's now going to have 3, 4, 5 lap fresher tires, which will allow him to have a little bit more speed than those other guys. So he will be able to make up a few seconds here and there. But
Thomas Harmon,
I think it has weird, Yep, Harmon's down. So Levine is still out there.
Now there's just now this is kind of funny to see. Wade Hustad has been so fast this race. He has already passed Dustin Musil and John Mullins, and they didn't even pit yet. The 4th and 5th place cars there. Wade Hustad's already up to 3rd and gaining there on Chris James, but he is so fast this race. He passed guys that didn't even pit yet. So Wade Hustad was able to enter pit road, go all the way down, change tires, go all the way to the backstretch, and still catch these guys and pass them. That's insane.
So, yeah, Wade Hustad's already there. I mean, that shows that Levine and James are they going to wait until they get lapped before they go in? Yeah, are they still,
because if Chris James
are they
and
crossing
Levine,
their fingers? Are they crossing their fingers at this point? That's like, hey, hopefully a yellow comes out.
Yeah, because if they go in now, they will go a lap down. As we still, I think we have about 18 cars on the lead lap still, which is good considering we've had 42 green flag laps here, not one caution we had. So definitely ripping through this race as far as overall pace goes. But some of these guys, I feel like, because it's kind of been a while since we've had this type of race here in the Cup Series, some of these guys
we're having trouble with Jordan Gonzalez in the 9. He's right in front of Justin Levine in the 19, and he was blinking really heavily on that backstretch. Looks like he's settled down again.
Gonzalez I saw a couple times. Sam Niederhelm, he tends to blink every now and again. But
Justin Levine's coming down pit road.
But again, what I was going to say is, since it's been so long since we've had this type of race, Maybe maybe these guys are a little rusty as far as their, I guess, what do you want to call it? Their tactics, maybe. It's been so long since.
It's hard to determine. It's like how far. Now, obviously, Wade Hustad was way fast. I mean, he caught them really fast. So that's going to hurt them.
It's not just Wade Hustad, it's everybody. When you stay out that much longer than everyone else, everyone is faster than you.
But they do have. They're going to have 10-lap fresher tires now, so they'll be able to gain up a lot of that.
Hopefully, it stays green long enough for them to take advantage of it, so it actually cycles back. Because if it doesn't, pending lucky dogs and all that stuff.
Well, now that yellow flag, that yellow flag is now going to be do the reverse of what they want. I mean, the yellow flag when they were out there is what they needed, and now they do not want a yellow flag.
Absolutely, they could not afford it because one of those two drivers would go and get the lucky dog. Maybe if they're in position.
Now, of course, once they get back on the lead lap, then a yellow flag won't be bad because then it can get them bunched back up again.
Now, I mean, we're getting to that stretch now, Martin. I'm going to try to go through the field here a little bit, starting with our leader, Wade Hustad, who has led, most of this race here so far. As soon as he was able to pass,
and he just hit 210 miles per hour on that stretch there, going into turn 1.
So
that shows you how fast they're going.
Yeah, Wade Hustad, he seems to be just doing Wade Hustad stuff. As we come back to yesterday's winner, Chad Presnell, also his teammate, 4.2 seconds back here. Looking at Chad's information here, we obviously spoke with him earlier as the pole sitter of this race, and again, he gave us some good pointers. That's kind of what these guys are looking for, saving that right front, not pushing the issue, and just being there at the end, which so far these guys have obviously managed to do that. Behind him, Eli Hinton. He is currently running third. That is where he finished in last week's race at Pocono. A great debut race for him last week, and this week he's able to keep it clean. Michigan is not an easy track, and a lot of our drivers here, our regulars, are incredibly fast at this type of racetrack, so he's showing that he belongs here and that these guys maybe need to be worried and might consider themselves lucky that he's not eligible for the championship right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a shame for him, is that just coming in so late in the season, but sounds like he's really excited just to race in this league and really compete next year for the championship.
Oh, absolutely. Behind him, we already know Mr. Burrows. He's not really that good of a driver, kind of just garbage all around, so we're just going to pass him. From the 5th place, Martin, could you please, of course I'm just joking about Burrows, could you please remind me how to enunciate the driver in 5th place?
I'm going to say Kian Raleigh Howell.
Yeah, okay. That's making sure.
My guess.
Obviously, if anyone follows the Discord here, he's running a beautiful new paint today, and let's see if we can get a little bit closer look at that beauty.
Steven Universe Astro. I don't know what that is. It must be some. What is it? It must be some anime or cartoon or something.
Something.
I'm too old.
I know, right? But anyway, he's he's currently holding on to that 5th position.
But I like it.
As we were just talking about that driver, Anthony Burrows ended up passing Eli for 3rd place. But looking back here, one of the drivers that you mentioned earlier and who is driving a awesome paint scheme today, might I add, is Mike Springer here in the Lucky Charms / Cocoa Puffs / what else we got there?
Tricks.
Cheerios / recent.
He's got everything. What? I think that would be General Mills. Is General Mills?
Yeah, I believe something like that.
Yeah, there's a ton. He's actually. Look at the guy right in front of him. Well, Thomas Harmon just went past him.
Yeah, Thomas Harmon just went and blasted him.
Yeah, the guy in front of him in 23rd, John Mullins, is also running that same exact scheme. So they're both running that Lucky Charms, Tricks, Cocoa Puffs, Reese's Pieces, Cheerio. Yeah, I think that must be GM's. I mean, there's a ton of sponsors on this thing.
Now I'm looking at Mike Springer's vehicle here, and he started 17th, currently 8th, and he actually has a little bit of right front damage here, so that's going to affect him in some way or another, as Spencer Tart and Thomas Harmon have both passed him. And behind them, Jonathan Schwartz, who it seems like lately, if he's not in the lead, I feel like I might need to pinch myself and make sure that I myself am coherent, because he has just been absolutely dominating this series here, and even the league in general, the last, I'd say, month and a half, really. And even with how impressive his last month or two has been, he's actually been squandered 2 victories here in the Cup Series because of things that are just were out of his control. Issues with the lap.
The playoffs.
What's that?
Well, if the playoffs started today, I mean, he's second in the standings going into the playoffs, because all the points will all reset, and then they'll get bonus points for the wins. He's got 3 wins. Anthony Burrows has 5. He's second in the playoff standings once we get into the playoffs. So he's in a great position right now. I mean, he was that close to having 5 victories already,
which is as many as Anthony Burrows, who's been here all season.
That's the same thing there. Burrows has missed. I'm not sure if they've probably raced maybe by this point the same amount of racing. Yeah, it's these 2 guys.
He is Jonathan Schwartz is 1 pace car and 1 lapped car under caution away from being tied with Anthony Burrows for the most league wins. So very impressive for him. We're looking at John Theodore. Maybe not a name I talk about all that often, but he has a huge following here in iRacing. I know he has a stream of his own setup where he gets several views, and always running that Corey Bush vehicle there, a Ford actually, but very impressive run for him today. A solid top 10, and he's kind of on the same tire strategy as everyone else here. He kind of pitted. He was one of those, that huge group that came in. So, and then again, rounding out our top 10 is still Mike Springer. Looking back here, something happened to Joseph Held, but looking at his last pit stop, it was 30 seconds. My goodness, I didn't even notice that.
It looks like he probably had a little damage. He got a little bit of right side damage. He probably just got that fixed. He figured, hey, I might as well take the ding now, and maybe that'll help me with my time going forward.
Yeah, and again,
put back down.
he was one of our top qualifiers. He was well within the top 3. I believe he passed Chad Presnall and was able to lead a lap here as well. So Joseph Held looking to carve his way back from whatever mistake was made early on. Again, plenty of time as we were just past halfway here in this race. But one thing I'm looking at, it's kind of 9:15 p.m. Central Time. We are just cruising through this race right now, Martin.
Well, that's what happens when you're green racing. Well, look who's next here behind Helt is Jeffrey Meyer up from the Truck Series. He likes to race all these series.
Well, and he's been impressive, Martin, lately. I mean, it seems, with the exception of that truck race at Charlotte, where he kind of he was in the, I think it was a lap 1 incident. He was able to get some damage. Otherwise, you've been seeing that same paint scheme of the the red flame and purple and whatever he's got going on there. That truck or car has always been near the front these past few races that he's entered. So Jeffrey Meyer getting some experience on some of these other series, maybe looking around, sniffing around for next year's plans.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping. I mean, the Truck Series, we always have got quite a few people down there running for points, and I'm thinking, there's a couple guys. I know Matt Kleinschmidt has expressed interest in moving up and doing the Grand National for points next year, and I'm hoping a few of those truck drivers that are a little bit better down those trucks might decide, hey, I'm going to go give a try in the Grand National Series, give it a little bit more competition in that one. There's only a few. I mean, not a ton of drivers running for points in that series. So
yeah, and I was one of the drivers running for points there, and until I made the transition here as a broadcaster for DRL TV. But yeah, no, the Grand National Series is just a great. I feel like it's the perfect series because it's not so, because sometimes the trucks on some of these racetracks can be a little easy, maybe. I guess if that's the right word. Where the Grand National, it's a great balance. You get the speed. You kind of have to work the car a little bit. Not nearly as much as these Cup drivers, though, as we are riding along with Chris James as he's chasing down David Wright in that beautiful dysfunctional Patriots paint scheme of his. But now we're getting back.
Justin Levine just went past. What were we talking about just there? Just went past
Jeffrey Meyer.
Yeah, he just went past Jeffrey Meyer. So Levine was the one that he pitted. Him and Chris James here. They were the last ones to pit on that cycle.
Yep, he and Thomas Harmon also pitted kind of a little bit later than normal, and he again,
Harmon's already back up to 5th.
Yeah, but looking at lap times right now for Thomas Harmon here, it looks like he was able to gain up a lot of time, but now, now it kind of looks like everything's kind of stabilized, because by the time you hit lap 15 on tire wear, the difference between lap 15 and lap 25, I feel like it's really not that much. I mean, after lap 15, your tires are just toast, and they're just going to be toast for the rest of the time. You're not going to get that much slower. It just kind of becomes a handling issue if you can hang on or not.
Well, what blows my mind is we're talking about Thomas Harmon, Justin Levine, and all those guys pitting, and we're already 20 laps since then, and 25 laps since most of these other guys pit. So we're already well over halfway through this pit site, through this run, and within the next few laps, I think, going probably lap 67 through 70, you're going to start seeing guys go in again unless we get a yellow here.
We're watching Sam Niederhelm pull out of pit road here. Jim Westerfield also, he is now decided to pit. And it looks like, even considering the speed of these leaders, as Wade Hustad has still held on to that 4-second gap over Chad Presnall. We still have 18 cars on the lead lap, so that's very impressive.
Not sure what happened to Jordan Gonzalez and Christopher have both gotten out of their cars. Not sure what happened.
Jordan
maybe
Gonzalez,
Jordan's having internet issues.
He is just talk about a guy that
he must be having internet issues because he's back connected, and he was blinking before. So yeah, he's having tough luck. He's right there in that 18th spot in points on the outside looking in, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get past Wellborn, because Wellborn's got a couple laps on him now. And John Theodore, like I said, I keep pointing at John Theodore because he's a guy that's consistently running up top 10 now.
Yeah, no, he is.
And if he can just keep doing that and keep showing up, he's going to get past Jordan Gonzalez. He's going to get past Wellborn. And Alice, another guy who isn't racing today, so he'll be able to gain a little bit of spots on him. Alice being about 79 points ahead. Well, no, yeah, 79 points ahead of John Theodore. So
I'm pulling up the graphic now here.
A couple of races.
Now again, these points that I'm showing you here on the screen here as we're following Chad Presnall, all of these there's kind of a stipulation where you have to run 80% of the races. So it doesn't really show you how many races they've run out of the 14 that have officially ended.
Yeah, I'm thinking of all the people on this list, the one that I'm not sure of that will make it might be Mark Johnson, because everyone else is pretty good on their participation. Johnson joined late. He's also missed a few races since he's joined, so he might be a guy that, despite having that win, might not be eligible for the playoffs, depending on how he goes through the rest of the season. He's really close. So,
Jordan Gonzalez has pitted, and I think he's probably waving the white flag here at this point, maybe trying to figure out those connection issues.
No, he's coming back out.
Is he? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I think he was in the pits because he was trying to figure out those connection issues now.
Right now we're following Anthony Burrows, and we see his best lap is a 38.0. And he's actually coming down pit road right now. It's funny, I was just getting ready to say the difference between his best lap and his previous lap. Anthony Burrows is coming down pit road right now. But yeah,
well,
2-second difference between the best lap and their current lap, and that's only 30 laps in. I mean, where else do you go that only after 30 laps you see a 2-second decrease? And you want to know something? You want to know something crazy, Martin? And maybe I'm wrong, but I bet you any money if you look at the wear usage for their tires, their left sides are probably still pristine. Those right sides are just getting hammered here, though.
Oh yeah, it's about a 20% difference, I would think. It, probably, 90, 85% on the left, and then that right side by the end of the run is, in the low 70s.
We are currently riding on board with John Theodore, who has been chasing Jonathan Schwartz. These two drivers have kind of been pretty close to each other for most. We kind of, when we were going through the field earlier, these drivers were right next to each other. So currently Theodore running 6th. Oh, Schwartz so loose coming out of 2. My goodness. And again, who knows how many cars we've missed getting loose off of turn 2 and maybe sliding down in field. Kind of as we saw Eric Johnson earlier, as a result of him checking up for Anthony Burrows getting incredibly loose out of turn 2. So Wade Hustad, Chad Presnall, Justin Levine, and we are on board with John Theodore.
And Theodore is going down.
He has decided to pit, and so...
Whoa, had a little trouble slowing down and kind of got loose in there.
As we are now on board with Jonathan Schwartz, who does look like he has a little bit of right front damage, but looking at Spencer Tart, who has recently pitted, just absolutely blow right past him.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if Tart had new tires, if he was pulling that move with old ones, because that's some wicked good driving if you can do that.
When we were running through the field, unfortunately for Spencer Tart, he kind of passed somebody as we were running through, and we didn't really get to talk about it, but he has been a top 10 vehicle all race as well, Spencer Tart that we're talking about.
And I love his cup scheme. His Grand National scheme is okay, but I really love this Pop-Tart scheme for him.
Yep. And for those
stands out.
Yeah, for those of you that may not know, because I'm a huge advocate of this person here, is Bill Edwards has actually created that scheme that Spencer Tart is running, Fatal Concepts, as Martin just mentioned. If you ever see a broadcast where I'm racing, you're going to see an incredibly bright pink vehicle. Bill Edwards created that for me. He's actually created my entire stable paint. So, it looks like Spencer Tart has some right side damage too.
Yep.
But
I think he's got some blinking issues, I think.
I don't know how rare that's going to be at this point in this race. There might be just a few drivers that don't have right front or right side damage. As we kind of been looking around, that kind of seems to be the theme here.
Yeah, well, I've done some painting on my own, and like you look at this paint, and it doesn't look really, really crazy or anything. It's kind of a simple thing, but to get that to all line up, because just the way textures work.
Well, and the way you have to cut it and all that stuff.
Yeah, that it looks like it should be simple. Oh, we got a caution. All right, let's see. All right, calm down there. David Wellborn's coming over. So. All David Wellborn's fault, he says. Let's see. There's a guy in the grass. Oh, I'm not on Wellborn there. Why? I missed him. Whoa, okay, what? So he... Oh, he was coming out of the pits, too.
David Wellborn.
Coming out of the pits. Just too much speed.
Right up into Eric Johnson. Oh, yeah, man.
Too much speed in that pit thing. Hit the yellow line, then hit the grass, overcorrected. Right up in front of Eric Johnson. Johnson not having any luck today. Wow.
Well, and Wellborn either. It kind of looks like he just. It's almost like he caught a hump as we were riding on board with him. Well, he kind of slipped.
Yeah, he kind of slipped and hit that yellow line, and then I think he was like, "Oh, I'm too close to the yellow line." Corrected, and then that overcorrected to the grass and caught the grass, and that sent him right up into the track. So that's a shame. That's gonna really shuffle things up, because a lot of guys were halfway through that pit cycle, and now look at Jeffrey Meyer, Alec Martinez, those guys. That's going to pay off a ton.
Thomas Harmon also. So
yep,
a huge.
Now, yeah, luckily for a guy like Anthony Burrows, he pit a few laps earlier, and he's already back where he was when he came in. So, but there's a lot of stuff. PJ O'Leary's up there in 7th. So that's going to really shake things up.
Do you see any of these guys that maybe just recently pitted come back in, obviously top off, since we will have about 28 to go, and maybe just take right side tires?
Well, if I'm Anthony Burrows or did Wade Hustad already come in? I'm not sure, but if I'm Anthony Burrows, he came in just a few laps ago.
Yeah, Wade Hustad is actually coming off now with a crazy battle between the 10 car and his teammate Chad Presnall.
And how long was he in the pits there? Did he take the whole
16 seconds, yeah. It looks like the 10 car took 2 or just gas with no, that would have been 2 tires at 9.8 seconds stop there for
I don't know. I mean, if you're within, I mean, for him that, for the 10, that gained him a few positions. That only gained him what? He came out now, he's going to be, 6th. So it's like, if I'm Anthony Burrows, Anthony Burrows did the right thing. Take 4 tires. You still got 30 laps to go. You're only 4 positions back from those lead guys. Mm-hmm. You're going to overcome. I mean, you're going to be if you only take 2, you're putting yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage when those guys take 4. Just to gain what? Maybe 1 position.
Yeah. Again, I mean.
Now for the 10, maybe, but I think even the 10, that's not the smartest thing because the guys in front of him, everyone's gonna. I would just get 4. There's no reason to really game it at this point, unless again, if you're further back, if you're back in 20th place, and you got caught kind of with your pants down on the yellow flag.
Now,
maybe you take, you just took 4 tires. Yeah, maybe take right, top it off, or don't even go in because you might have. You're basically in the same spot anyway.
Now, we are currently riding on board with our new leader, Eli Hinton, who, again, I'm not sure if he led last week, but if he didn't, this is his first official laps led here in the Dynasty Racing League, and only his 2nd race, which I raced more than 2 races this year in the Cup Series, and I led, I believe it was 0, Martin. 0 races total led for me in the Cup Series, and so a huge shout out of acknowledging Eli Hinton, just really showing these guys that
I think I have a lap led in the Cup, but insignificant. That being one of those pacing laps, right?
I think
and you just stay out, get those bonus points.
Well, while we have a moment here, we are going to kind of just remind you guys that next week, Martin Wenzel, I'm telling you what, I'm super excited here. Next week is Sonoma Raceway. We're going to go 55 of the ugliest, most brutal laps that NASCAR sees all year, and we are going to be visiting it as well, as we will, head west and try to tackle Sonoma Raceway. What do you think about that, Martin?
Well, it's going to be interesting, especially since I think we're going, hopefully we're going to be going full-time broadcasting the Indy Series, and you're going to have those road courses. We did that road course at Canadian Motorsports last week. And just the difference of those Indy cars whipping around those road courses and these stock cars trying to navigate Sonoma. It's going to be interesting. It's going to separate. We're going to see who the best drivers are in this league. Who are the guys that can drive anywhere? Now, one of those guys is Anthony Burrows. He can drive anywhere. Eric Wolf, if he shows up. Tommy Bordeaux was a guy last year. He dominated both the road courses last year, but he hasn't done much Cup racing this year.
Yeah, we've only seen him a few times, so.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with him, if he's just busy or schedule or what. Maybe he's doing that road to pro. That's why he's not doing a Cup. I'm not sure. I think he's running for points, as much as that's worth for as many races that he's missed down in Grand National. But
right. Well, Martin, as we are set to go green here, I'm going to do a little rev it up here, Martin. So we're going to let these cars do some talking here for a couple laps, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. That's the best part.
And we will start on board with our current leader, Eli Hinton. that's always a good time, I feel like, is listening to all those cars just fly here at Michigan, just hear those motors screaming at the end of those straightaways. Well, Martin, help me out. What am I trying to say? Much faster than well over 200 miles an hour. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. All right.
I've been watching Alec Martinez. I almost wanted to chime in during that run up. He was getting blown by on that restart, and he's now seemed to settle in. He's now running 7th, but
right in
looks like
front
he
of him
would be
is
a liability up there.
Yeah, right in front of him is Kean Howell, and he's one of those guys that actually, I think, only took 2 tires here, so we're going to see kind of what happens to Kean Howell's strategy, as he's one of the only cars.
Hinton a little, yeah, he's got those 2 tires, and then Hinton got a little loose out of turn 2.
Yeah,
Anthony Burrows is trying to get past him.
I tried to focus. There was definitely a crazy battle that Wade Hustad was involved with, as they are 3 wide coming off of this.
Yep. Hinton is loose, and he's like, I have nowhere to go.
And he
did not
pit.
Down?
He did not pit, so
Hinton didn't pit.
So he's a little bit older tires here for Mr. Hinton. As we were watching him follow Wade Hustad, who has very, very much fresher Goodyears here by only 3 or 4 laps. But again, that makes a huge difference here, as we've seen the times, as the drop-off in times here between just a few laps, as Burrows decided to pass Thomas Harmon, and he decided to pull Wade Hustad with him. So, and one thing I was looking at, trying to maybe check some of the standings from earlier this year is, I consider Auto Club to be Michigan's sister track. And guess who won Auto Club, Martin?
Wade Hustad?
Anthony Burrows. So
yeah, it was one of them too, right?
He didn't qualify incredibly. Again, fifth starting position. Obviously, that's better than what I have done, but we've seen him get many poles here. So if he qualifies outside that front row, you kind of wonder. But here we are, kind of nearing the end of the race here, as we have about 21 laps to go, and Anthony Burrows decides to lead his first lap of the race. And no better time really than here at the end to decide to come up front.
Well, and that was exactly the point. It's like he might as well take 4 tires because he's got the speed. He'll be able to catch them. Especially, you take 2 tires, you're just putting yourself in a little bit more of a hole, I think. With 30 laps to go with that last pit stop or whatever. I mean, you're restarting 5th or 4th. Yeah, Wade Hustad right on the bumper there.
We were riding on board with Anthony Burrows. We're actually going to switch to Wade Hustad here to see kind of what his throttle sounds like as he is trying to pass on the inside, which is a situation that Martin spoke about earlier. Ooh, that is so close. Trying to pass on the inside here is, not always the easiest, and if Burrows can keep him down there for a while, you're going to see that tire wear on those right sides really, I guess accelerate. But he was not able to do that, as Wade Hustad is back out front. And we do have a little bit of a battle there between the 6th and 7th place position of Alec Martinez and Kean Howell, as we kind of spoke about them earlier after that restart. Martin mentioned Alec Martinez kind of dropped back a little bit, but here he is trying to fight back outside. And right behind these guys, Jeffrey Meyer, he was able to take advantage of that caution flag coming out because he was able to stay out. And he is, now well within the top 10 with Mark Johnson and PJ O'Leary, who earlier in the race, it seemed like he couldn't even turn a lap here, and he's rebounded quite nicely.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, John Mullins, PJ O'Leary, they were kind of in the lower half of the field, and then along with Dustin Musial, they got great luck with that yellow flag. They had they were just on the end of their run and probably going to be coming in the next few laps when that yellow flag came out. Courtesy of James Wellborn, so they should be giving him buying him a beer after the race or something. I don't know.
Exactly. Again, some of those guys we mentioned actually don't run for points here, but I mean, if you can finish in the top 10 here in this Cup Series, that's an achievement, you know, all on its own. As we were on board with Wade Hustad, looking back at the distance between he and second place driver Anthony Burrows, he's kind of stretched that out just a little bit. It was at 2/10, it is now at 3/10. Thomas Harmon has been able to maintain that third spot, but Chad Presnell, our pole sitter, is going to be looking to probably pass him here shortly, or at least attempt to, as he's kind of caught the tail end there of Thomas Harmon. And Thomas Harmon's actually also caught Anthony Burrows, so maybe Anthony Burrows, I mean, he had that lead there for a little bit, but it seems like he's losing a little bit of ground to the leader and also getting caught a little bit by the guys behind him. We see David Wellborn coming back out of the pits again. He's one of those bubble drivers as far as the points go, so he's going to finish this race and try to get every point that he possibly can.
He's got a heavy damage. Not much that his crew can do to fix that, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big hit that he took.
I don't know. He's just going to go out there and run some laps because there's not really. I guess he wants to stay. Well, the guys all behind him, Eric Johnson, Stouffer, and Jackson, are all out of their cars. And really the only one he could possibly catch is Jordan Gonzalez, but Gonzalez is still on the track. He's coming out of pits now, 4 laps down.
Now, one of the things is
that's where that battle is between those two guys.
He's going to be thinking about those extra bonus points that Dynasty Racing League does hand out for completing the race, even if you don't have the greatest luck. I believe it's either 1 bonus point or 3. It's something like that. But when you're down there trying to make a cut into the playoffs with 11 races to go after this one, and maybe, you know, seeing next week, a lot of guys see next week as basically not a race at all. So basically 10 races left. Not a lot of guys count Sonoma as a race, Martin.
Yeah, who knows how many? Yeah, who knows how many of these guys are going to show up next week? I mean, we have 29 out there today starting.
Yeah, a full field.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were like 35 signed up, so about 6 no-shows. And Dave Wellborn's going back to the pits again. I don't know what his strategy is right now. If he's just trying to get, you know, I don't know why. Just get all the repairs and then go back out, or
right.
Run a lap, grab some repairs, run another lap, grab some repairs. I don't know.
We're looking at a battle between PJ O'Leary trying to look inside of Jeffrey Meyer, as both of those drivers are either trying to pass Mark Johnson or have been recently passed by Mark Johnson. I can't exactly remember, but
I think Mark Johnson's been in front of him for a while now. But
Mark Johnson's.
I like Mark Johnson's new skeet in there. Yeah.
Nice. And he's
still got a little bit of American flag going there, but it's a black and orange and everything.
Still has a little bit of that right rear damage as well. It doesn't seem to be, you know, it's kind of, Jeffrey Meyer, my goodness.
Yep.
And yeah, we're getting to that point now where these drivers, I mean, it's possible we haven't seen our last yellow, but again, you know, just because of the handling of these cars. But I mean, these guys have done an excellent job today. Martin, has it just been the one caution?
Yes, it has.
Now, looking back, 2 drivers that really didn't benefit from that caution earlier is Jonathan Schwartz and John Theodore, who were easily top 10 cars. We talked about Schwartz earlier in the race being a top 10 car, but he wasn't, you know, a top 5 car as we're normally used to seeing. But he and John Theodore must have kind of got a little boned there on that cycle when he got that caution flag, because they go from being, you know, where were they, 8th and 9th at some point to now being 15th and 16th, battling just to stay inside the top 10.
Yeah, and John Theodore doesn't have any, like, again, on the point standings, it's like wherever he finishes, as long as he finishes ahead of Gonzalez and Wellborn, that's going to be good for him. And Daniel Hallis is not racing today, so he's gonna pick up some points there and close that gap. But I think he was eyeing up a way better finish, which would have closed that gap a little bit quicker. And you know, we'll see what he can do at Sonoma. Like a number of these guys, I wonder how many guys are not going to show up.
Well,
you know, or if all these guys will. I mean, you might as well try.
As we're looking at Spencer Tart, who's in 20th now, his race went south pretty quick. He has extensive right side damage. Chris James right in front of him. One of the things that I've noticed here in the past few weeks, as we are now going to switch our focus here to this kind of battle within the top 5 for these last 10 laps, one of the things that I've noticed through the surveys that we initiated for maybe a road course series this winter, and through the Indy series, I've really been surprised with the amount of skill that we have here for road courses that people maybe weren't aware. I wasn't aware that there were so many people that were interested in road course racing, and I didn't really understand that we had guys like Chris Stouffer who he put on a clinic last week. And so it'll be very interesting, Martin, next week as we go to Sonoma and even some of the other road course races and some of the other series that we run, to kind of see who shows up and who has the skill to go out there and you can really take advantage of, you know, kind of maybe a lower attendance race, you know, which I guess you could maybe, if there might be lower attendance because, you know, in fact it's one of the more difficult road courses, but I could see a couple guys turning our heads next week as guys that have surprised us with the amount of skill that they have on these road courses.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some guys that are going to be better at the road course, but I'm sure most of these leaders will still show up because usually these guys are good at almost every track. I mean, Anthony Burrows was good at the road courses last year. Eric Wolf was as well, so we'll see. It's going to be interesting because we got a lot of new guys here, like Wade Hustad, Fresnel, Harmon. I didn't see, he didn't race. I don't remember him racing any of the road courses last year. We've got all these new guys, and we're going to see like, oh, maybe there's, you know, who's good at the road courses in these cars, because even, you know, you mentioned kind of Chris Stouffer and some of these other guys that are doing well in those Indy cars on the road courses or are interested in road courses, but I think driving an Indy car or a Mazda or anything on those road courses is a lot different than driving these stock cars on something like Sonoma.
Well, yeah, no, of course, yeah, that also has to be said.
But that also, you know, if you do have that little bit of road course experience, and you know, it can give you that little edge.
Yeah, but no, yeah, one of the points that I was getting at was just we talked about maybe next week being lower attendance. A lot of guys are really interested in road course racing because iRacing, you know, puts a lot of money and time into balancing.
A lot of road course.
You know, a lot of road course focus. So some of these guys are seeing that. Some of these guys, like Robbie Armstrong, who had never tried it before, are trying it now and are finding out that they might actually enjoy it more than an oval race. Right now we're.
Oh, it was interesting.
What's that?
Oh, you go. Well, it was interesting. Even last week during that race, or that we did the race at Canadian, it's like that. Like Tater was like, "Oh yeah, I was looking at your line. You had a really great line. And I think you just get those like load cell brakes, brakes or whatever, and that would you'd be running the 102s or whatever, like we were running at Canadian." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Yeah, I kind of got a decent feel for that track, and so I think, you know, if it's something you're interested in, give it a try. It's something different. I think it breaks up the monotony sometimes. Sometimes it gets a little boring doing oval all the time.
Yeah, no, and of course. Yeah.
Probably the number one reason they have it. I mean, that's one of the big reasons they do have it on the schedule. Go to Sonoma and Watkins Glen. It changes up a little bit.
And also the Charlotte Roval and some of the other foreign racetracks that we go to in the other series.
I'm looking forward to the Charlotte Roval race. Now, I don't know if iRacing is going to have the actual Roval, the NASCAR.
Yeah, or they're just going to have the
arrangement of it, or going to be running that old road course. And, you know, that's going to present a way different challenge, though, too, because that road course is definitely not designed for the NASCAR, you know, these stock cars.
No, it's very narrow.
Yeah.
It's like more narrow than a residential street. Now, one of the things that I'm paying attention to is Chad Presnell is trying to get, crack a podium, if you will, a top 3 here, chasing down Thomas Harmon, but in these last few laps, the gap is basically maintained between Anthony Burrows and Wade Hustad, and obviously, as we get to 2 laps to go, we will focus on the leaders, but in the meantime, Mark Johnson and the 10 car have also been having a very tight battle with Mark Johnson and the 10 car doing a little door bang in there for a second, made a little slide job as we saw PJ O'Leary trying to join the party here. 3 laps to go here, Martin, and Wade Hustad. We haven't really talked much about him because he's been so far in front, and it's just incredible to see. There's been just a few races here this year where he just checks out and he is gone, and I just want to know What is his secret, Martin? What does he know that I don't? That he's just absolutely just putting on a show, and he's beating drivers here that are good. You know, Anthony Burrows, Thomas Harmon, Chad Presnall, all very fast drivers, and he's just driving away from them.
Well, that's what we wanted this year. That's what we wanted this year. We got a lot of new drivers in that have, you know, similar levels to, you know, a guy like Anthony Burrows. And so now we're seeing Jonathan Schwartz has 3 wins. Wade Hustad's on his way to his 2nd. You know, we're actually having some different winners and guys that are always competing. It's not just like a fluke win here and there, but it's they're right there and close. Ooh, Anthony Burrows getting loose going into the tri-oval.
Probably trying everything he can to put.
He's not going to catch him though.
To put some distance between put some distance between he and Thomas Harmon. Try to catch Wade Hustad, but Wade Hustad putting on an absolute clinic. An excellent points today for Hustad, assuming the rest of this lap here goes well for him. He's going to lead the most laps. He's going to get the victory, and this is just going to be another. This is going to be
PJ O'Leary. Whoa, PJ O'Leary snaps a little bit. Hang on to it. You're having a good race.
Yes, he comes right back up here. Probably going to be passed by Levine.
He's going to lose. Yeah, he's going to fall back to 12th now.
But we are looking here at Wade Hustad as he crosses the finish line as the race victor here with Anthony Burrows, Thomas Harmon, Chad Presnall, and Eli Hilton with his 2nd consecutive top 5 finish. Alec Martinez, Kean Howell.
All the way from 24th.
Yeah, Kean Howell with an impressive run. Mark Johnson, Jeffrey Meyer, and Justin Levine. They will round out your top 10, Martin. I feel like that was...
O'Leary falls all the way back to 13th. I mean, he was running there 8th. He was working, trying to get past Howell for 7th, and then ends up getting loose and falls all the way back to 13th.
Now, one of the things that I will say, though, is I feel like this is maybe one of the races that this Cup Series desperately needed, because they were getting shown up by some of these other series as far as cleanliness and overall quality of racing, as Chad Presnall and Wade Hustad are going to decide to do the teammate burnout routine there, as we have often been seeing here this season here on post race. And there we are. Gentlemen. David Wellborn, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I just wanted to step in here and tell you what a great job y'all did here tonight broadcasting. And I want to apologize to all the race friends for the one and only yellow that we got. Just clipped the grass right there, and it shot me right up the track. Ended up taking out the 21 car. So I owe him an apology as well.
Well, as we've noted in the last 2 races, last night and tonight, as we look at Wade Hustad Park, almost perfectly there in Victory Lane, that apron can be treacherous, and that pit road exit, and we'll talk about that next week at Sonoma, because it's going to be a thing there too. That's a whole new wrench that iRacing has thrown into the plans here of some of these guys that have been on in iRacing for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden they have to change their entire routine.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one thing about the racing here tonight. It was absolutely slick out there. First 3 or 4 laps you had to really mind your P's and Q's. And the car came to you about lap 10, and then when you got to about like 20, all of a sudden the back end gets snappy loose, and you see drivers out there that was just having to crack the throttle coming off, or they was going to smack the wall. I several times went through the infield and down the back stretch where the car snapped loose on me. But
don't feel bad, David. You were not the only one. There were several good drivers known for their car control that were definitely having issues with the handling here. Just so much power, so much speed, and not enough grip here at Michigan International here. Now,
I'm not sure what driver it was, but he was like 3 cars in front of me. He snapped so loose that I could literally read his door numbers, and how he saved that car, I will never know. And the broadcast probably didn't pick that up.
No,
but anyway, I'm going to let you gentlemen finish this broadcast out. I just wanted to pop in and let you know what happened there with the only yellow. Gentlemen, y'all did a great job here tonight.
Thank you, David. And for anyone who isn't familiar, David Wellborn is another one of the voices here at DRL TV, also a competitor here in the Cup Series. Didn't quite go his way, But you know who did have a good race is Mr. Wade Hustad, as we will try to bring in Wade Hustad for an interview. Wade Hustad, you got a copy, sir?
I do, Getty. How are you?
I'm doing okay, and you put on a hell of a show, Wade. To be honest, we didn't really talk about you that much because you were kind of a dot on the horizon, as you were as much as four and some tenths in front of second place there. Tell us kind of about your race, I guess, since we really didn't see you. You were so far out front.
Yeah, I figured this was probably going to be repeat, just like Auto Club. So I knew we kind of had to split up the race there into 2 different segments or 2 different pit stops. But I didn't want to get too far behind as other people were pitting. So I was just trying to strategize as it going green the whole way. It almost played into the hands of some of those other guys that pitted really late as that yellow came out and, they're on the lead lap and also in front of us. But I was just kind of minding my own business, really focusing lap after lap, corner after corner to make sure that, I was being consistent. For this track, you have to listen to those tires. You can eat up the tires pretty quick. So I was just, I was really focused this race. So I gotta thank you guys for allowing me to race in this league. And I don't know what to say. It's well overdue to try to get in victory lane again.
Well, it's always a pleasure watching you because I've seen you in all 3 series, and I've actually had the pleasure of racing with you for a couple races, and kind of as like, I guess, sort of teammates, if you will. And your ability to manipulate your car during the race, as far as like different strategies and stuff like that, it's really impressive to watch. So it's no surprise that you're here in victory lane. But now next week we go to a course that is a little different from some of the other ones that we've visited recently. What do you think you can do next week?
Don't tell me it's a road course. I haven't looked yet.
It might be Sonoma, Wade. It just might be.
Hey, I'm looking forward to that. Now, I have no experience there, but again, I don't really have experience here, and I didn't practice much with Chad. So maybe I just go into next week, no practice, and maybe we'll have the same result.
I'm gonna doubt it, but you never know, Wade. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to? Also, Martin, if we got you, is there anything that you want to add here as we talk to our race winner, Wade Hustad?
I'd say run a few practice laps at Sonoma just to, know. Yeah.
If I'm going to take one thing away from tonight, I'll probably take the advice of you guys for practice for next week.
Yes, please. Again, do you have any shout outs that you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, I just want to thank David Wellborn, James Pandolf, you, Getty, Martin Wenzel, Jordan Gonzalez. I'm probably forgetting some Tater Bowman. All you guys put in so much time for this league, and probably sponsor dollars as well. I can't thank you guys enough. I do want to thank Molnar Automotive for sponsoring the series. Really, you guys put together such a tight-knit league. A lot of the drivers really respect each other and like racing each other, and of course we joke around and probably get at each other's throats a little bit, but overall, like, I really like this league, and it's what's keeping me here on iRacing.
Well, Martin, if you don't have anything to add, we're gonna let this man celebrate his victory.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for everything you guys do. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Wade Hustad. I appreciate it, and we will hopefully see you next week at Sonoma.
Fingers crossed, you'll see me.
All right, as we will try to hunt down our second place finisher here, Mr. Anthony Burrows. Anthony Burrows, you got a copy, sir?
Yes, sir.
Well, you started that restart behind Eli Hinton, and then you were able to pass, kind of get a little bit of a gap from second, but Wade Hustad ultimately chased you down and got past you. Is there anything in this race that you could have done differently and where you would have been ending the race as the winner instead of in second place?
I'm not really sure. Wade just had me on speed all night. Short run, long run, everything. I really had nothing for him. I lost a lot of time on the first set of pit stops. I got ahead of him for that, for the one restart we had, and I tried holding them off the best I could, but I just had no shot. But, yeah, I gave my best tonight, but yeah, huge congrats to Wade tonight. He did amazing.
Well, of course, you didn't get the win, but I don't feel like there's really anything wrong with second place, as we are now inching closer to the the start of the playoffs here in 11 races. And now I just asked Wade a question. I'm going to ask you the same thing. What do you have for next week as we travel to Sonoma Road Course?
I'm really looking forward to it. I really enjoy the road courses in these cars. I did pretty well last year on the road courses, so hopefully this year it goes the same. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to those. Those will be a lot of fun.
Awesome, Anthony. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to? Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to, Anthony?
Yeah, Wade for that race clean night. Everyone else I raced tonight for racing clean. Shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast as always, and James, Tater, all the admins for putting on this league.
Well, Martin, if you don't have anything to add here for Anthony, we will see you next week, and we look forward to watching you, sling these heavy stock cars around a road course.
All right, thank you guys.
As we've now set our sights on speaking to Thomas Harmon, our third place finisher. Try to find Thomas Harmon here. Move him right there. Thomas Harmon, you got a copy?
10-4, I got you.
Well, you were able to hold off Chad Presnall in those closing laps to hang on to a third place finish. In those closing laps, what were you doing that you were able to maintain that spot?
When Wade and Anthony got by me, when they were behind me, I was pushing myself harder than what I was comfortable with. But it was causing me to run a little bit differently. And then once those two got by me, then Chad got by me, I settled myself back in and returned to running the line that I was at the beginning of the race. And it just little mistakes made by me and him that allowed me to catch back up. He just made more than I did.
Well, obviously you can't really argue with a third place finish. It's very impressive here at Michigan. Was there anything was there any part of this race here that you wish you could have, maybe go back and redo?
Yeah, when Anthony and Wade got by me, I wanted to fight them harder than what I did, but when I went into turn one, my pedal shifted, and I didn't get to hit the brake anywhere near as much as what I wanted to, and it just went up the track, and I just let them both on by. And I wish I could have had that over because I would have fought them harder.
Yeah, no, that's, again, some of the unfortunate circumstances that happened in the middle of an iRacing, race. The fact that we're not in actual cars here, stuff like that can happen. Luckily, it didn't cost you anything, besides maybe a position or two. You still finished third here, Thomas. Martin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it was just a good race. I mean, you got pretty lucky on that last yellow flag. I mean, how was that? Did you? I assume you probably just took 4 tires because you stayed out there.
No, I came down. It was Eli that stayed out.
Yep. And you got the 4 tires, and he stayed out.
Yeah, I come down and but I come out second. I was actually getting ready to come down to pit that next lap because I noticed after the first round of pit stops, my gains on the top 4 kind of plateaued, and I just wasn't able to make up the ground. So me staying out really wasn't worth it in the long run.
Well, awesome, Thomas. We look forward to hopefully seeing you next week at Sonoma, and otherwise have a good rest of the night, sir, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, we will move Thomas Harmon down to his teammate channel here and try to bring in Mr. Chad Presnall. Where is Mr. Chad? There he is. Chad Presnall, you got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I got you, bud.
Well, here we are. You didn't get the win like you did in last night's race, but you did get a 4th place finish, and obviously since this is a points race for you, that is incredibly important. You were the pole sitter here, but you didn't, you kind of fell back a little bit there at the beginning of the race. What was going on out there?
I just feel like I was a scotch off all night just with the balance of the car. That first long green flag stint, I did fairly decent with Wade. He was getting a little bit better drive off the corner, but I hung in there, and I felt like we had a good race running. And that caution come out and certainly mixed things up. But all in all, I'll take that 4th.
No, You know, that's absolutely again. There's nothing nothing wrong at all with a fourth place finish, especially in a series that you're running for points. For next week, though, we head to Sonoma road course, and I'm asking all these drivers kind of what they are expecting as far as, you know, what can you bring to the table?
I certainly think I'll find the tires sooner than later.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, at Sonoma, that is always likely. Chad, it's been a pleasure to watch you today. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to here as we, wrap up this interview?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Martin and yourself. Y'all do a great job on the broadcast booth. James Pandoff and all the staff of DRL, Molnar Automotive Cup Series. This is top notch, man. It's unfortunate that we haven't made it on the big screen on iRacing yet, but I think that's soon to come. There's a lot of talent in here, a lot of good driving, a lot of action. So I think we'll get there. I'd like to give a shout out to friends and family that's watching, and most of all, Wade. He drove his guts out tonight, and he deserved that win. And I'm certainly glad to see him get it.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. He was there's really no arguing who was kind of, especially as we passed halfway through that race, we kind of knew who the favorite was at that point. But you had the pole and you finished fourth here, Chad. So great showing by yourself also. And so you and your teammate probably have to be pretty proud there. Martin, is there anything you want to add here for Mr. Presnall?
Oh, it was a good showing. I mean, you had a good showing this week after having the off week last week via the suspension, and came back and won the race last night, and then finished fourth place here. So all in all, a good comeback. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I was certainly stoked to get back this week. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to see what you and Wade can do at Sonoma. He said he wasn't. He said he was planning maybe just going to Sonoma, no practice, and seeing how it goes. But I'd suggest doing at least do like 2 or 3 laps, and maybe just see it. It's like, oh wait, that's where I have to turn. Just go straight into the sand.
Yeah, you're just gonna drive over a hill and end up wiping out either yourself or half the field there.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm gonna let Jesus take the wheel next week.
You and several other people, I imagine.
We'll see how it goes, though. This should be fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. And as always, it's a pleasure to watch you race.
Yep. Thanks, bud. You guys have a good evening.
Now, as we're getting ready to bring in our 5th place person, Eli Hinton, again, a huge shout out to all the drivers. As Chad mentioned, obviously the goal is to be one of iRacing's premier leagues, which I feel like we were certainly close. The only way that happens is, through our competition. It's not because of me or anyone else. It's because of the drivers out there. And if you put on a good product, iRacing will realize that it's worth showing. So again, just a huge shout out to our drivers putting on a show in all, 4 times a week, really. So it's been great. Eli Hinton, though, is in the broadcast booth with us. Oh my goodness, you can tell it's the end of the broadcast. Eli Hinton is in the booth with us. Your second consecutive top 5, Eli. How did today's race go overall?
I mean, it went pretty good. I mean, typically I'm not good at 2-mile racetracks, Michigan or Auto Club, but considering that, I did pretty well, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You stayed out there on that final restart. Again, I wouldn't say that was a failure. You did still maintain that top 5, but maybe I think you might have been anticipating maybe a little bit better results there, Eli.
I mean, yeah, I just pulled off my green flag pit stops and went through 3 and 4, and then right when I got through 4, caution came out. So I was in like 12th place, and I wasn't gonna pit. I was just gonna stay out. And those guys are just fast. I couldn't keep up with them.
You are a newer driver to this series and to the league overall. But we have noticed that the past 2 races, you're no slouch, Eli. You've been able to put in 2 great top 5s at tracks that aren't all that easy. Again, as you mentioned earlier, not really your strong suit here, these 2-milers, but you still get a top 5. Next week, we're going to head to a whole different breed of track here at Sonoma. So is there something that we need to know about your skill set when it comes to road course racing?
Well, hopefully I don't burn off the rear tires too much there. I mean, it gets a little bit squirrely. And see if I can get a top 5 over there.
Well, Eli, it's been a pleasure watching you as you've started the series with us, and we hope that you finish out the year, and I look forward to next year as well, as you will be championship eligible, and you're showing these guys that you belong here, and that's absolutely awesome. Martin, do you have anything here for Eli?
That's basically what I was gonna say. It's like the little shame that you can't really compete for a championship this year, but you're definitely out there competing. Your teammate started a little rough, but he ended up finishing right behind you in sixth place. So that's a cool 1-2 finish or cool 5-6 finish for you guys on your team. So looking forward to seeing you guys out there. I know you guys. I didn't see in the Grand National. I know you signed up but didn't show up last night, but your teammate was out there. So a couple of good additions to the league recently. So keep going out there. I'm sure we'll see you in Victory Lane at some point the rest of the season.
Yeah, I hope so. I just want to thank you guys for broadcasting and thank my teammate. You had a good run tonight, like you said, P6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that you'd like to give a shout out to, Eli, before we let you go?
Tater for being race control, I guess.
Yeah, the most difficult job in the universe.
Yeah.
Again, Eli, it has been a pleasure watching you race. A great, solid top 5, and hopefully we'll see you next week interviewing you as well as a top 5 finisher.
Thank you so much.
Well, again, just a reminder, the next race that we will broadcast on a Tuesday, it will be next week, June 19th at Sonoma Raceway for 55 laps, Martin. Again, as we mentioned earlier, I'm really excited. I always feel like road course racing is something that I just generally gravitate to, as it just is incredibly exciting. It's going to be hard keeping up with all the activity on that, incredible 2-mile track there.
Yeah, it's definitely something different. It's fun to watch because it's definitely a completely different race than we're used to, normally in this series. And it really, you're gonna see some different drivers maybe step up. Might be the same guys that are just good every week, but I'm sure there will be some outliers, some guys that will show that, hey, I can drive the road courses in these cars. And that's what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see some different guys sneak into that top 10 because they figure out how to drive the truck or drive the car and, possibly just keep the car on the track. I mean, that's half the battle almost, is that you stay alive long enough, you'll have a good finish.
And you and I were talking about it for a few minutes during the actual race broadcast about how there's been a surprising amount of candidates that have come to the Indy Series, which is half road course, half oval. The surveys that I've put out for the Winter Series, which would be 100% oval or 100% roval, sorry. So yeah, no, we've got the interest, we've got the skill level. It's just Sonoma itself being even, it's not Watkins Glen. It's incredibly difficult road course on these very heavy, 800 horsepower vehicles. It's going to take some practice, whether Wade wants to or not. He's going to have to do it, and it's going to be a really exciting race. One of the other things that we will be covering is the next broadcast, which will be tomorrow. We spoke to him earlier, Mr. David Wellborn. He will be broadcasting the Texas 300, which me and Martin will actually be competing in as the Winona Road Truck Series travels to Texas Motor Speedway for our longest race of the year in that series. So 200 long laps, Martin, as we get set for our I guess the endurance race of that series, if you will. But again, focusing our attention here to Michigan 200. It was a great race overall. A few surprise finishes in the top 10 there. We're talking about Eli. I guess not really a surprise, but not, obviously he's new to the league, so we're not used to him being in the top 10. Mark Johnson, Jeffrey Meyer, who we spoke about earlier, Justin Levine, who was one of our top finishers last night. Dustin Musil sneaking in the trying to sneak in the top 10 there, just outside of it. One of those drivers that definitely wants some points here as we get within within 11, 10 races of that playoff format that we'll be doing. And then Kean Howell, also a great top 10 finish for him. Just to remind people, the point standings here as they were before the race started, so you can see some of the guys that needed a good run didn't quite get it. As speaking to Jordan Gonzalez, Jonathan Theodore ended up rebounding pretty well from him getting caught in that one yellow that we had, but he still only went as high as 14th. And John Theodore was definitely better than a 14th place vehicle today. So luck certainly not in the.
He'll gain some points there, but not as many as I think he could have gotten out of this race. He's had a few of those where it's like he's easily could. Daniel House not being in this race, he's going to make up a good chunk of those points in this race. But I think he was definitely a top 10 car and just had some bad luck.
Yeah, as I was mentioning, a lot of those bubble drivers didn't have the greatest luck. As we saw, David, he was the reason that the one caution did come out. Now, focusing here on our unofficial results, as you can see, Wade Hustad leading 69 of 100 total laps. Just absolute, just mayhem. He wrecked all over the field. I mean, when he was coming out of the pits, he was already passing people that hadn't even pit yet. So just incredible speed that he showed today. But he had a little challenge there at the end with Anthony Burrows showing up with 20 laps to go. Which, if you know Anthony Burrows, isn't really all that surprising. Looking at our top 20 here, Joseph Held, who was a top 5 car at the beginning of this race, must have got mired back in traffic somehow and ended up finishing outside of the top 10. PJ O'Leary, who at the beginning of the race we kind of followed and it seemed like he was really struggling, but he ended up rebounding quite nicely. Jonathan Schwartz not having the day that he probably wanted. Chris James, Mike Springer, Spencer Tart, all those guys, again, since we had some surprises in the top 10, obviously those guys who normally would be top 10 drivers got pushed down, and some of those guys got to walk away from Michigan a little bit disappointed as we are looking here at the rest of the field. And, Martin, is there any other takeaways that you take away from this race?
Just the takeaway is just the amazing. I think the competition out there it's really top notch, and we had a race that went again one caution, and that was kind of just a silly thing. They were coming out of pit road, just got that caught the grass. Otherwise, I mean, early in that race there were some points where I was like, wow, these guys are going sideways. David mentioned that where he saw like the numbers of a guy, and you could see the whole side panel. The guy saved it, where people were doing that and they were getting on each other and they were within. I mean, there were so many points where I saw where a wreck could have happened and the guy behind just let off, or it was just there was just luck and everything. And it's just this series has kind of redeemed itself, after a couple of weeks where I think the other series were a little bit cleaner overall.
Yeah, I mean,
and this one, one caution. I mean, you can't ask. I mean, this race went by like that. I mean, what? We're almost 2 hours into this broadcast, but that's, we've been talking for the last 15 minutes. I mean, the race the race took an hour and a half. It was short. It was sweet. It was,
it's a very fast way to cover 200 miles.
Well, we were talking. I mean, when we were going through the field, we weren't even able to get through the whole field before they were already back onto that next green flag cycle, and then that caution came out, and that was 30 laps went by like that. You blinked, and the race is over. And so,
I mean, when you see a field get strung out like this, there's still a lot of competition. Like, yes, there was 30 cars all wrapped around Michigan, but there's a lot of good battles, a lot of good intrigue as other people were staying out, other people were pitting at different times, blah, blah, blah. So just a great finish, and as Martin mentioned, kind of what this series needed to really say, hey, you know what, guys? Let's not forget that we're the best. Because recently we've had the Truck Series at Charlotte, only had 1 or 2 cautions. Last night we had 3, and then last week these guys at Pocono, which generally doesn't have that many cautions, had 7 cautions total. So yeah, Martin. Absolutely great point. An incredible rebound, one caution flag, and again, is caught. Is just kind of a fluke incident there. Unfortunately for the one caution flag that came out, Eric Johnson was involved, who, as far as I'm concerned, has some of the worst luck right now in this entire series. He was able to rebound and have a good race at Pocono, but comes here and checks up for Anthony Burrows and then just gets T-boned by a car coming out of pit road. So there's really nothing you can do there. But before we go any further, on the screen here, you can see the names of people that are responsible for bringing this league to you. James Pandolf, Tater Bowman, our two, I guess what you want to say, bosses, Martin. Graphics here are done by Martin Wenzel and Jordan Gonzalez. Anytime I do a broadcast, I give Martin Wenzel, Jordan Gonzalez a huge shout out. Without them, I mean, everything we're looking at here, the live logo, all this font here, all the graphics that we've had all day, it's all done by just two people, and it's incredible. They do 4 races a week. Martin, again, huge shout out to you, huge shout out to Jordan Gonzalez, because he's kind of in charge of the software that runs all these graphics. So a great team there. We're very, very lucky to have those two individuals working with us. As far as broadcasting goes, we have myself and Martin, and you will be reintroduced to David Wellborn and Taylor Butcher Benjamin for tomorrow's broadcast as they bring you the Winona Road Truck Series tomorrow at Texas. Right there is their list of admins that if you need to reach out to anybody, especially through Discord here, we're very visible. Our font is a different color than anyone else's, so if there's any issues or if you're interested or anything like that, anything that comes up, speaking mostly to the drivers of the Dynasty Racing League here, please contact any of the names on that list, and we will be sure to assist you in any way we can. Right there below that is the list of administrators and race control specialists, if you will, for each individual series. As tonight we had Tater Bowman call a race, and again, race control is one of those jobs that it's almost like working for a waste management. It's got to get done. It's not always pretty, and not everybody wants to do it. It's a very hard job being race control, being in charge of managing 30 drivers here at once. But we've got a great group there that do it, and we're very lucky to have the people that we do. Lastly, one thing that I'll want to say is that if there's anyone watching that is interested in joining the Dynasty Racing League, you've seen some of our newcomers, Eli Hinton, Alec Martinez, Kean Howell. They've making an immediate statement. If you're interested, you can be one of those drivers. All you have to do is go to www.dynastyracingleague.com. It's pretty self-explanatory once you get into the website as far as trying to navigate it. You just put in a form and it will reach, I believe it's James Pandolf, and then he would be in touch with you. So if you're interested in any 4 of our series, please come out, and we'd love to have you. Martin, is there anything else you have to say as we are starting to conclude this broadcast here today at Michigan? I will take that as a no, Martin. And again, a huge shout out to our sponsor of this Cup Series here, that is Molnar Automotive. All the sponsors that we have for our 3 stock car series. This has been a live presentation here at of the Dynasty Racing League here on DRL TV, and we will see you next time.
See ya.